All right, it's January 2nd and my hands are still working. I was a little sore last night after throwing that much, but I still feel like I'm not giving up. Oh, this clay smells moldy. I guess that's fine. Nice and plastic, right? I think the 4 different logs worked pretty well last night. I was a little bit short, switched over to ring dishes at the end, but I felt like that was a pretty good amount. I think it'd be better if I started earlier in the day so that I had some time to take a break in between and it wasn't so back to back, but it is what it is. So when I'm preparing my pieces of clay to sort of throw off the hump, I literally just slam wedge on the edges to sort of round it out a little bit. And that's kind of all I do. I just cut it right off the bag, and then I just go ahead and make it a little bit more into a cylinder, and then it's ready to throw. Probably could have gone a little bigger on this one. This right here is from a brand new bag, and I think it's a little bit soft, far softer than the other, so that'll be a nice treat. Maybe if I throw enough quickly enough, then I'll be able to work with soft clay the whole time and it'll be a lot easier on my hands. This bag of clay is older, so I'm going to try to use that up first. So this will be the last of the old stuff. If I can get it out of here. Oh, there's a chunk of clay. Ooh. Do I want to commit to that much? Feels really heavy. Okay. I guess we can see how it goes, right? So there's that. So just a quick check-in for today. This is gonna be really boring, so I have to use my phone for my audiobook rather than filming to sort of keep myself motivated. It's 9 p.m. It took me that long to get through. I had 22 orders for Etsy this morning that I had to get done. A lot of them were like 8-piece orders, and it's really, when you're packing multiple pieces of pottery together to keep everything safe, it's a lot of extra work. So I am getting a very late start to the throwing process tonight, but it is January 2nd and I am sticking to the goal so far.
Hey everyone, day 4 in the pottery studio. Last night, day 3, I didn't get quite the full 100 done, but pretty close. The thing that's really tripping me up is just the logistics of running an Etsy shop while doing this challenge. So I spend a lot of my time during the day shipping things, and I am now really behind on listing things because in making 100 things, I don't have as much time to list all of those things. So I'm going to try to get a bunch of listing done today. This morning, I'm just trimming some of the pots from last night. I made a lot of little bowls, so I thought I'd do some trimming footage. And what else did I make last night? Hold on. So I was throwing the brown bear clay last night, and I was making some of these like little rustic vases is my plan there, and those were coming out really good, but obviously not sticking to the plan of only doing small things, because if I'd been doing that, I probably would have been done with my goal last night. I'm just going to trim these last 40 or so bowls, and then I'd like to get some throwing in today, but I definitely know that my Etsy shop has gotten down to that 50 items mark, and that if I don't start posting, I'm not going to keep making money. So I am going to have to take a small break for that. I knew I was going to anyway, but I think I can probably get another. I'd like to get to day 5 before I have to do a bisque run. I don't even know if 500 things can fit in a bisque run in that kiln. Probably. Um, fingers crossed. We'll see how too dry these pieces are for trimming. My lug of clay is also a little dry, so I'll probably have to get another one of those before too long. But we'll see. I've been trying to throw these with a little bit of extra on this edge so that I can actually trim them nicely. You know, the first, it's really just been since I started my YouTube channel. I don't know. At first, I really wasn't trimming very much at all because it didn't seem to affect how much money I could get for a piece. So I would just leave the bottom flat or use a tool while it was throwing to sort of cut in that little rim on the edge to give it a more finished appearance, but not going full on in. This one didn't have a ton of space for me to go in. Oh, maybe I've got a little bit more room. Oh, that's probably about it. Sometimes I'll tap them and they're just too thin to do anything, but right here I've got a little bit extra that I can feel. As far as energy level goes, I think so far I've been okay with the challenge. My hands are a little bit tired, I guess. See, those are wanting to release. I feel like my tools for trimming just get really dull really quickly, so I use whichever one is seemingly semi-sharp at the time. I need to remind myself to go buy some more though. I don't think the brown clay, bear clay, is necessarily super hard on tools, but I feel like the Iceman was like really running them down. A little thinner on this one, so not as much of a foot. If something has no rim at all, I'll just do a quick spiral, and that's what most of my ring dishes are like. And I am definitely not a perfectionist when it comes to trimming. Just kind of making it look kind of nice. I always try to go for things that are a similar size first. I do love trimming. Maybe at some point I'll start making some that are a little bit thicker on the bottom. It's just for so long that I've been making them without a foot and not planning on trimming them that I've gotten very used to throwing close to the bottom so that they're not too heavy and don't need to be trimmed. You can hear how hollow it is right there, so I can take off a little on that edge, but not much in the middle. So I don't usually like tap center or anything with these. I just kind of put it in the center of the wheel and adjust if I didn't do that perfectly. But I'm not opposed to trimming something a little off center either. And yeah, I find that potters are far more particular about the bottom of something than a customer is. You know, when I'm selling pottery seconds, people are just like, well, the top looks good. Who cares? So it's kind of an eye opener. Like, don't spend all of your time on something that doesn't actually make you more profit. That said, I do like a nice bottom. So can't even remember. Does this one have any room in it? Hopefully. It'd be pretty sad if I trimmed right through the bottom of this. Yeah, I could definitely use some fresh clay for holding these on the wheel. This is the stuff I was using last night. And I know, like, I've seen Florian do it where he just mixes a little bit of water into it, but for some reason it feels like it never really, when it gets to a certain dried out stage, it doesn't want to stick anymore. All right, let's try this. So this wheel that I'm trimming on is the wheel that I bought when I was first planning on starting well, I wasn't really starting a business at that point. I was just like, oh my God, I remember I love pottery. And so I bought this very cheap wheel on Amazon, thinking that it would be my wheel. And it's definitely, I used it for about a week before I bought the big wheel to throw on. But I still use this wheel for trimming. I like how easily removable the splash pan is. You know, and I don't need the speed to be that fast or that consistent or anything else. So I like having a second wheel for that. So if you're debating on the cheap wheel and you're like, oh, am I going to be happy with it? Am I going to use it at all? You know, if you're on a tight budget, I definitely threw my first 100 pieces on this wheel and was fine with it. And it still works. So it's been, I don't know what it's been, 4 years, and I've trimmed quite a few pieces on it, and it's still good. So the problem with this one, if we're looking at it, so you can see here that it got pulled up unevenly. So this side's shorter, this side's higher. Sometimes when I have something like that, I'll just, doesn't actually need that much trimming, so I'll probably just trim it uncentered. Or occasionally what I'll do is I'll try to like poke a little bit of clay under the short side so that I can kind of get it to be in the center. But that's hard to do. It'll definitely wants to pull off the wheel at that point when it's not making good contact. But you can see here by just tucking a little bit of clay up under that edge, it's a little bit better. Ideally, we're all throwing so accurately that you don't need to do that, but most of the time it's not the case. Well, maybe not most of the time. I think having a small wheel with more lines almost makes it easier to just place it in the middle. I don't know. I've watched people use the Griffin grip, and I feel like you spend a lot of time. Like, I really like throwing on those little square bats that I have, but I've been realizing that I lose more time using those bats than I save. So recently I've been switching over to just sort of throwing and pulling it off and then planning to trim the bottom. I'm actually spending a little less time. The time that I would have basically done taking the bat on and off the wheel, I'm now spending trimming. And well, it's not necessarily time saved. I feel like the product is nicer. So, yeah, that's kind of where my head's at on that. So, yeah, that's a bit about how I'm trimming my bowls this morning. I got some more to do over here still. Another pile. I have at this point made it through 4 days of the challenge. I'm definitely getting tripped up by the amount of finishing work and listing and shipping that the pieces require. So, yeah. So throwing 100 pieces in a day isn't so very bad. It's the throwing the 100 pieces, trimming the 100 pieces, and then shipping some pieces from the prior day. So, yeah, some stuff that I'm falling behind on is definitely the Etsy stuff. But each piece before it goes in the kiln, I wipe down the bottom for any little rough spots. I'm trying to check the inside here and make sure I don't have any bumps. I had a few in my last opening that had unforeseen clay in places it shouldn't have been. So do that, and then I scratch my signature into the bottom, and then I load that. Yeah, and I've got a lot more. So I'm looking for, you see, you'll just get an edge that's, once it starts to sort of, when it's wet, these edges never seem like they're so sharp. And then when it's dry, you start to see that it's going to be sharper. And then after it comes out of the bisque, it's even more so. And you're like, oh, okay. And then when it comes out of the glaze, you're like, oh, now I have to dangerously sand this thing that I've already made because I didn't clean it up enough in the first place. So I try to be aware of that. All right. 398 more to go tonight. I'd love to know people who do production pottery. So if you throw the 100 in one day, does that mean you also trim them that day? And then, like, are you doing other things in that day too? Or is it like, oh, it's just a production day. I only throw and now I rest. I'd love to know when I can rest. All right, level 1 is loaded. As you can see, I just do a tumble stack, but I do still put the different levels in so that the weight isn't too much on the small pieces. Level number 2 is stacked. Shelf number 3 loaded up. Last shelf looks like I probably could have fit another 50 pieces in there. So I guess the answer is probably about 450 smallish pieces would fit in this kiln. So this should be the start of day 5 of the challenge, and my studio is in very sad shape. Here on the floor, I have a pile of pottery on top of an extension cord that I borrowed. Yeah, the chair I usually sit on when I'm trimming pottery. And that would be my trimming wheel, also covered in bisque pottery. And where I would like to wedge the clay, I have a pile of glaze. Here is the shelf that I would put my newly thrown pieces of pottery. And possibly up there too. Maybe I could tuck them back in there. My throwing wheel has pottery on it. And more stacks of glaze. And people are still trying to do laundry in this room? Good luck. Is there one of those like organizing services that'll come to your house and like sort your pottery supplies for you and make it nice and clean and like scrub everything? Although if they did that, then I'd never find anything. Yeah, it's day 5. I'm struggling. I'm gonna end the update here, but hopefully the rest of the week is gonna go even better. Have a good night, everyone.